Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Neil Haley Network's Stack Your Own Deck. And I'm excited to welcome to the program the host, Larry Bradley. Larry, how are you? And I'm excited to talk to you today about today's topic.
Doing great, Neil. How about yourself?
Hey, you know what? I can't believe how quickly summer went by. It flew by so fast, and now we're close to October. I love the warm weather we have now, but that's soon going to end.
If I'm not mistaken, today is the first day of fall,
Wow. Okay. Well,
right?
a lot of times we need these seasons, right, Larry? For our health in certain ways as well, because we can kind of get used to, we can get excited about certain times of the year and stay in seasons. I like seasons, by the way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It also affects our mood talking about today's topic.
Yes, it's a great topic. The mental health crisis in this country and the situation of how many people are suffering from depression, anxiety, and different things. And Larry, you have a different point of view than a lot of people about this crisis.
I do. And first, let me frame it for our audience that it's called a crisis because it absolutely is in a crisis situation, mental health in America. Give you some numbers from 1999 to 2014. The rate of mental disorders in the United States has risen almost 25%, right?
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
uh, let me, if I may, can I start? Let me
Sure.
start with a story. Uh, it begins this way. It was snowing on that February morning in the small, tiny little town of Norwood, Pennsylvania, where three girls that day, 15-year-old sophomores, made a pact. And the pact they made was they were going to go to school that morning, but then they were going to cut out and walk 2 blocks to the train station where they would see the 10:15 Metroliner going from New York to Washington, D.C. It would pass by their town about 10:15 a.m. And their pact was to get up on the railroad tracks in front of that train and hold and hug each other as tightly as they could and let the 10:15 Metroliner take them out of this miserable existence that they called life. So the day arrives, and two of the girls are already down there. As I said, it's snowing. Two of the girls are down at the tracks. They're
Okay.
waiting patiently, anxiously for the third, and they start to text her and call her and say, "Where are you? Where are you? You're going to miss it." And she said, "I'm on my way. I'm on my way. I'll be there in a few minutes." And when the third girl arrived, her two girlfriends were already up on the tracks, embracing one another. And this girl had changed her mind and said, "No, no, please stop. Get down, get down. We don't have to."
Oh my.
And it was too late.
Wow.
So, but here's the thing, Neil. I'm going to throw some names at you. Ernest Hemingway, Kurt Cobain, Kate Spade, Freddie Prince, Amy Winehouse, Michael Jackson, Whitney Houston, Elvis Presley, Marilyn Monroe, Prince, Robin Williams. I could go on and on and on. The point I'm trying to make is mental health disorders don't discriminate. You could be three obscure young girls in a tiny little town anywhere in America. In this case, it was Pennsylvania, uh, known only by your family and a
Okay.
few close
Hmm.
friends. Or you could be rich and famous and seemingly have it all. And yet these people are, we're losing 130 people every single day, Neil, to suicide,
Oh,
taking their
yeah.
own lives.
Wow.
We're losing more people per year than died in the Vietnam War
How about wow?
to suicide. And part of that, along with the opioid crisis, is creating another issue where we're the only industrialized nation on earth declining in our life expectancy for 3 consecutive years. We haven't seen that kind of decline in life expectancy since 1915 to 1918. So that's kind of
Yes,
that kind of frames it up.
it frames it big time. It really says to yourself, well, why aren't we talking about this more? Why aren't we looking at this more? We're looking at the actions of people across this country and the number of people that are just unhappy with their lives. And we're not addressing it in any way with our healthcare system. And we're, again, a band aid, as we talked about in other topics.
We're spending approximately $90 billion a year in U.S. healthcare dollars for mental illness. Much of that's in prescribed drugs. And here's a frightening statistic, Neil. Over 60% of the prescriptions written for psychotic drugs are not written by psychiatrists or psychologists. They're written by medical doctors who are in no
Oh
way in
no,
their own
yeah.
lane. A lot of these pills are causing people to build a dependency on the drug because their body builds up a resistance to them. And then I don't even want to go into the side effects of these things. And half the people on psychotic drugs are getting zero effect. But here's another scary number for you, Neil. 46 over 46% of the people in this country that have a mental illness will not seek treatment. Will not seek treatment. And I think I know why. I was recently at a
Wow.
conference. Listen to this. So these doctors were in the front of the room talking, and one of the docs had lost his son, 24-year-old son, to suicide. And he asked a question. He said, I'm going to ask you two questions. I want you to raise your hand if you know anyone or you yourself have battled cancer. And there were probably 500 people in the room. Every hand was up. He said, now I just want you to shout out adjectives to describe those people that you know that battled and beat or battled cancer. And there were words coming at him from the crowd like strong, warrior, champion, conqueror. And then he said,
Yes.
okay, same question, but different disorder. How many of you know someone who's battling or has battled a mental illness? Almost as many hands went up. He said, now you cannot offend me, but go ahead, do the same thing. Throw the names. Don't worry about offending me. Just say the adjectives that come to mind when how you would describe these people. And he heard words like wacko, crazy, nuts,
Oh
weirdo,
no, yeah.
strange. And his point was this, and I think this is part of the problem why 46% of us won't seek treatment is because of the sorry stigma that's attached to mental disorder. So what you said early on in the show, Neil, we have to start talking about it and making it okay. By the way, if you're part of the LBGTQ community, you are 3 times more likely to take your own life.
Oh my.
Talk about a
Yeah.
stigma. Talk about, coming out, if you will. We've got to come out on this subject and take this stigma away and let people know that it's okay. By the way, almost half of Americans will experience a mental illness at some point in their lives. Almost half of us.
So
That,
that's a big number. Think about that's one
that's
out of two. Every person you meet, the next person you meet could have a mental illness at one point in time.
exactly right, and one of that, I'll bet you that is supporting that projection. Unfortunately, is the number on autism. They're telling us that by 2025, 1 in 3 kids will be autistic or
Oh my
on the
gosh!
spectrum.
Wow.
That is insane.
What do you?
That's sad.
Yeah. Wow.
So yeah, well, there's several things that people can do, and I think it begins with uh, those afflicted and those caregivers who are not experiencing a problem have to create an environment where talking is okay and making it okay to acknowledge what's going on and seek help. There's some outstanding things that people can do. For, again, beginning with making it okay to just even talk about it and then let alone seek treatment. But cognitive behavioral therapy, fantastic drug-free
Yes.
therapy. Now, it could also be supported with drugs, but it's a behavioral therapy that takes aim at uh, disruptive thinking and behaviors in people experiencing a mental issue and addresses them to challenge them and change them. And it's an ongoing cognitive, i.e., learn therapy or teaching therapy to help people work their way out of this. And again, like I said, they can be supported. I'm not saying all drugs are bad or we shouldn't be on them, but I do say we're on way too many of them. And in many cases, they aren't necessary or other therapies could be tried. And as you know, we've done earlier shows where we've talked about the self management sequence, talking about where our behavior under stack your own deck, where our behaviors come from And then once learning where they come from, how to better manage and change our behaviors for better outcomes, that certainly assists in this issue. And then, of course, the mental, emotional, spiritual cleanse.
Yes.
People need to deal with their demons, and that's what the mess cleanse is all about. Taking those things,
Yes.
those horrible, damaging, negative emotions, fear, anger, guilt, disgust, and learning how to work your way through and address them, just kind of like a cognitive teaching therapy, to say, here's what we can do. Here are things we can do with those emotions at one point, and then as they continue to arise, and teach people out of the situation, you know? So there's so much available, so much that can be done that people need to be or become aware of.
They definitely have to become aware of this. And you talk about so many different things. I think that another one of the mental health stigmas is I don't want to be medicated, so I can't be helped. I don't want to get on these addictive drugs, or I don't want to end up committing suicide because I took a medication. I don't trust this, so I'm not going to get help for that reason alone.
Right.
And how many people you've talked to, Larry, that have said that? Just, oh, I don't want to get on these drugs, so I just suffer through it and deal with it.
Absolutely. And they're prime candidates, though, rather than suffer through it and shut down. If we can get them past, in many cases, I believe it's the stigma that they don't want to acknowledge, or let the world or even people they love and love them know that, hey, I've got something going on that's not right inside of me, and it's not a broken arm. You know what I mean? We can all sympathize
Exactly.
with a medical condition, but the mental side is, again, it's got this stigma. So to get that person into some cognitive therapies to learn to attempt at least to learn their way around it if they don't want to medicate. And an interesting sideline here is that if you if you pay attention to the advertising, and I actually think we've become numb to it. We're only one of two
Right.
nations on earth that allow direct to consumer advertising of medication. And back in the day, Prozac really changed the whole world of psychotic drugs. But
Yes.
there are many, many drugs being advertised that have nothing to do with mental illness. They're for physical ailments. But you'll hear them say among the side effects, you could potentially have suicidal thoughts. So that the chronic condition drugs, physical condition drugs, medications, are actually affecting us mentally and emotionally. And it is the leading cause of the chronic illness state of this country, is beginning with addiction and mental illness. It's the number
Right.
one leader toward the chronic illness, because often, and by the way, the number one addiction is the number one leader to prolonged disabilities, and that shouldn't surprise any of us, right? Because that's where people often end up. They're debilitated by their addiction, and but there's so much going on, as I say, in the medical community and outside the medical community, where people can get help. And I think, sadly, a lot of this is just stigma. I'm afraid to tell the world that I've got these demons, that I'm trying to deal with. I'm embarrassed by them. And you're right, they can resign themselves to a life of, quote, just dealing with it, and many of them don't or can't. And I think that's also feeding the suicide rate that we're seeing, which is off the
Yes.
charts.
Oh,
You
it
talk
is.
about
Yeah.
almost 50,000 people a year.
Yeah. And there's so many ways that a certain addiction will lead to depression, anxiety, challenges, and just not, panic attacks, things like that. But health can lead to it, but also your environment, your addictions. So you could end up down that road of depression because of your health, but you also could end up down that road of depression because of addiction. So there's a few different roads that can drive you right to the same place that we're talking about today.
Well, how's this for irony? We're losing, as I said, approximately 130 people a day to suicide. We're actually also losing roughly the same number, about 130 a day to opioid addiction.
Right.
It's just so strange, but it's just so unacceptable. It's so unnecessary. My favorite teacher and speaker is Les Brown, and he's famous for saying a lot of things that I love, but a lot of people love. But one of the my favorite lines of his is, he says, "Suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem." Now, barring terminal illness, where people want to exit this life, I you can understand that. At least some people can. I know it's a touchy religious subject and all that, but I mean, barring
Right.
that, it's typically a temporary problem that what's sad to me, and I think this is part of why we do the shows, get the word out. People need to know that there's things they can do. People need to know that they don't have to be stigmatized. People need to know they can step up and speak up for themselves and say, I need help. It's that's the beginning of the cure right there. It's just to say it. I've got something going on and I need to get some help.
I need help. That's a very, very big thing to say. And when I think about all this, Larry, it's just flabbergasting that everyone on listening to this show has knows somebody that's dealing through this right now today,
Yes.
have a
Yep.
mental health issue. It could be out of their control or it could be in their control, meaning not in their control. It came from specifically enough a hereditary, or it could be from a circumstance. PTSD is not just from the military now. It's a lot of people are suffering from PTSD based on certain things, and we need to talk about those as well. So we just can't look at just depression and anxiety. We got to look at all the different mental illnesses and feel for these people and understand these people and try to get them help, because a lot of times it's very hard to get them the help, as you said, with that percentage you said at the beginning of the show.
Absolutely, Neil. Talking about PTSD and military, here's a couple of numbers for you. In the Iraq War, more active duty soldiers for America killed themselves than were killed in the battle, in the war. Same holds true for the Afghan war that's ongoing to this day. And go back to Vietnam. Now, more Vietnam vets have committed suicide than were soldiers killed in that same war. Talk about PTSD. Talk about getting some people some help. And they're the ones we're aware of, you know. There are
Yeah,
other people
yeah,
that may have died of illness brought on by mental illness, physical illness brought on by mental illness, or an addiction that took them, took their lives based on something that's going on inside them because of what they were exposed to or saw when they were overseas. It's sad.
it really is sad. So, what are we going to do about this? I guess the solution to all these issues we talked about today.
I think this. I When I speak on this subject, I typically in an auditorium or wherever we're at that particular talk, I'll ask everyone in the group to look at the person on their right and their left, and look at the person in front of them and behind them. And I'll pause a moment and I'll tell them, you have no idea what that person is dealing with. So I'm going to segue to something that's it's going to sound strange, but it's got a big point that had a major impact on me. Because there's so much
Yes.
violence, so much
Mm.
disagreement, argument, and nastiness in our country. I mean, down to if you take it on road rage and the nonsense that goes on there. And that's just an emotional reaction to something that at the end of the day really doesn't matter. But let me get to this. I was in a challenge not too long ago, and it was one of the most significant challenges I dealt with in my life. I put myself in it. I'm not saying it was
Right.
uh, a physical or a mental challenge. Well, it actually was a physical and mental challenge, but
Yes.
my point is, I volunteered for it, and one of the exercises, and they kept telling us, trust the process, trust the process. So I did fully trust the process. One of my assignments, you kept getting these different assignments, and then you had to break them down. But one of them was I had to get a staff, a stick, you'd call it a staff, and I'd have to get a toy as a gift. And I was to go into the woods to be totally alone with my staff and my gift. And I would get on my knees and then wait for a meeting that was to occur. The meeting would be with my 7-year-old self, because my 7-year-old
Yeah.
self had a message for me. Now, when I first read the assignment, I thought, boy, this is out there. Yeah, but
Yes.
I said, trust the process. So I did exactly that. And I had already pre rehearsed in my mind what messages my 7-year-old self might tell me. And what makes this really valid for me is what the message I got that day wasn't anything I thought I was going to get. But among a lot of things, I sat and talked to my 7-year-old self for half an hour. And my 7-year-old self said this, which had a profound effect on how I treat people. He said, try seeing people through your heart rather than through your eyes.
Okay.
And that was, it hit me like a ton of bricks. I said, you know what? I'm very analytical. I'm often critical. And my 7-year-old self reminded me of that, by the way. I could do to
Yes.
change the way I treat people. So, but that message has stuck with me. And anytime I'm involved in something that where I feel emotional or things are getting un, uneasy inside of me, I'll say, how am I seeing this person or these people or this situation? Am I seeing it with my head, my eyes, or am I seeing it with my heart? When I shift to my heart, I realize, just like I say in that room full of people, looking around yourself, you have no idea what this person is dealing with. You have no idea. So, how about be kind? It
Yes.
doesn't take a lot to be kind, but you don't know something you might say to a complete stranger could stick with them for life and profoundly impact some simple thing like a kind word, a compliment, a gesture, paying for their coffee at the coffee shop or telling them how nice their clothes looks or their hair looks today or whatever. It may feel awkward to some people, but you never know what you say to someone and how it's going to affect them and stick with them. And that's why I'm saying, I think we need a kindness revolution. And as
Yes.
part of the Stack Your Own Deck program and book, we're going to talk a lot about that.
Most definitely. And that's what's so great. And that's a great end of the show. But I know always you offer something to our audience. And a lot of people are still catching up on episodes of Stack Your Own Deck. And it's, again, played a lot of different places all over the country. But also you can pick it up and watch it. I mean, listen to it anywhere. And also watch it in a way because we do put it out on YouTube and all these other places. But where you always offer something. What are you offering
Neil,
us today?
We're offering a free report, 10 things you can do to put your immune system on steroids. When I say immune system, I'm saying that a lot of these 10 items also very much support and help mental as well as physical, emotional issues. So it's 10 things you can do to put your immune system, and I'm going to say your psychological immune system as well, on steroids. And all they need to do is email WIN, at stackyourowndeck.com. Win at stackyourowndeck.com and just put in the subject line free report, and we'll send it right out to them.
And if you missed this and you said, oh my gosh, I missed this, jotting down this email, we will be tweeting it out and having it out in your social media sites as well. And visit stackyourowndeck.com today. And you can find lots of great information, read the blog, and all those different things. And we're going to have a lot more resources available very, very soon. So it's exciting times as you continue to grow. But your passion for doing this, Larry, is that you're doing this because you want to give back and bring great information to people so we don't talk about these staggering situations. Your background involved in the healthcare industry for so many years, you've seen so many stories of people that you work with or know that have gone through these things. Now you want to give them the tools necessary so we don't hear these alarming numbers in the next 10 to 20 years.
Neil, you couldn't be more spot on, and the most profound message I think in this show and maybe all our shows is this: there are some serious disruptors in and outside of the medical, mental, and physical communities doing some fabulous work, and curtailing side effects and harmful things and having unbelievable success with mental, emotional, and physical illness. And I just think people need to open their hearts and their minds and their mouths and say, I need help. Just say it, because you'd be blown away to know what's coming down the line, Neil, is going to revolutionize medicine, all branches of medicine in America. There's no doubt in my mind with what we're seeing and the people we're working and talking with. we're very excited, as you
I
can tell.
I completely agree, and I'm excited as well. And again, thanks again for tuning in to Stack Your Own Deck. We'll tune in soon, but also visit stackyourowndeck.com. Thanks again, Larry.
Thank you, Neil. Have a great day.
You too. Okay, bye bye. All right, that was Stack Your Own Deck, everybody.